Okay. Hello again, everybody. And I am trying to get my PowerPoint up here so you can see that on the screen. I was trying to just get it to look different, but maybe it just won't. No, that is not what we want to do. Okay, hold on. Okay, so we are ready to start. And someone, let's see, Joelle, good. Joelle, can you tell me if you can hear me okay? And see the PowerPoint? I hope you can. Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Yes, I can hear you and see you. It's great to be together today. I've already been I've been back and forth between RISE, the campus, this virtual conference, and the Stronger virtual conference. So anyway, it's been a really, really great day. And I'm so happy to talk to you guys about coping with anxiety and depression in college. You know, it's a big task we have because we've got about 45 minutes together, and then I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So it's okay, in the chat bar, just go ahead and talk to each other, make your comments, but try to save your questions for the end so that they don't get lost in the chat. That's what happened to me this morning. Okay, so I'm going to shift over to the PowerPoint. Okay, great. So first of all, let's just start out with, let's just say a prayer for this workshop. God, thank you so much for this time that we can be together virtually. Thank you that we can talk about anxiety and depression and just see what your word says about it, and we can learn what knowledge there is to be gained from the world about anxiety, depression. Father, there's so many things in our world right now today to be anxious about, to be discouraged about. Be with us. I pray that we can be stronger after being together and learning together and just seeing each other virtually and being able to fellowship like this. Please bless this time. We love you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so first let's just start off looking at some scriptures because there really are so many encouraging scriptures for us to read. And I won't spend time on them, but some of these would be great to memorize if you struggle with anxiety. And let me just say, I think we all struggle with anxiety and/or, we've got depressive symptoms going on right now with the world the way it is. Even before COVID, research showed that 45% of the population are walking around with what they call an adjustment disorder, meaning that there are stressors in our lives that are causing us to have a hard time adjusting. What are some of those stressors? Maybe parents getting a divorce. Maybe your financial aid for college has backed off. Maybe your parents lost a job or are struggling with their career. Maybe someone in your family is sick. There's so many reasons. Maybe you broke up with your long-term boyfriend. These are things that are stressors in our lives that cause us to really struggle and have a hard time. But here's some great verses. Philippians 4, verses 4 through 8. Do not be anxious about anything. 1 Peter 5, verse 7. Cast all your anxieties on him. God knew that we would struggle with anxiety. I mean, Jesus lived on this earth for 3 years. He lived just the way that we do. He had burdens to bear. He had anxieties. He had fears. Proverbs 12:25, an anxious heart weighs a man down. We know that, right? Colossians 3:2, set your mind on things above. So much of the picture of anxiety and depression begins in our minds and our thoughts. And that's why the Bible says it really throughout. If you think about it, all the scriptures that talk about setting our mind on things above, thinking about what is good and true and right. Ephesians 4:23, be made new in the attitude of your mind. I love that verse. And, not everyone who's on here right now is a member of our church, but I do want to say, just having the support of other Christians is immeasurable. Having the Bible to read in these words is immeasurably comforting, and it can make a huge difference. Whether or not we have an official anxiety disorder or whether or not we have depression or not, just these scriptures, the Bible can make a big, big difference in our lives. Take captive every thought. Wow, we try to do that every day, right? It's a great goal. The truth will set you free. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Jesus really knew what that meant, because he also was weary and burdened. It says God daily bears our burdens. And so, those are some scriptures just off the top of my head. There are books you can read. A great book for anxiety is by Max Lucado. It's called Anxious for Nothing. It's got a study guide and videos to go through it, and really great book. We went through that in our church setting. All the women did once. So you can have your own study in anxiety or depression. You can search for scriptures anytime too. Okay, so let's move on. What are the specific pressures that college students are facing today? These are. I got these bullet points from a college counselor, and she said that the kids that are coming in to her office have these particular struggles. She said that the kids are either that their parents have been micromanaging their lives, and a lot of you that's your age. You have parents that are baby boomers, and that's their thing, being a helicopter parent, or being micromanaged. Or she finds that kids are, on the other end, neglected or just not given any direction in life and not helped enough. So she has kids coming into her office that are under high pressure, either pressure from themselves or pressure from their parents. Their financial aid is they're on a scholarship, and it's only going to hold if they get A's, and maybe they went to a great high school that prepared them, maybe they didn't. But anyway, all of a sudden, you're faced with high expectations and you're under a lot of pressure. She sees students that are ill-equipped to handle the academic workloads with being on time. She sees kids that are really, really not sure how to interact with instructors or other students. And, research is showing I'm sure you read this as well, that technology is great and wonderful, and we're connected all over the world. But on the downside, being on our computers and on our phones so much has lessened the time that we have interacting with people one-on-one, face-to-face. And so we're just unsure now how to handle social situations. She sees students that have trouble making decisions on their own. Then that goes back to their parents possibly being micromanagers, making their own decisions. She sees students who try to set up a counseling time, and their parents want to be a part of that. And you know, what's the solution to that, you guys? That's to establish boundaries and say, no, mom and dad, I can handle this. I've got to learn to make decisions on my own. I've got to learn to accept the consequences for them being good or bad decisions. And I've got to learn to talk to counselors on my own and my teachers on my own. She sees, this counselor that I'm talking about sees first generation college students, meaning their parents didn't go to college, first generation college students having additional stress because their parents, of course, did not know what college was going to be like and didn't know how to prepare them. And some kids are working jobs, and you know, they're just overwhelmed. It's just a lot. And so if you're in that situation, you know, the financial aid department can help you, and hopefully you have an academic advisor that helps you not take on too heavy a load. So she sees kids that are not studying because they're discouraged. She sees kids skipping classes because they're overwhelmed, failing tests. And, you know, a big thing is, you know, their time management. There are a lot of workshops that they campuses put out for freshmen now. So pressures, you're under a lot of pressure, right? That's what I'm saying, and we're all agreed to that. Here's some statistics. The American Counseling College Association National Survey, this is 5 years ago, but they interviewed 75,000 kids. 42% reported greater stress than they had in the last 12 months. 10.3 said that they have tremendous stress. 35, that's a third of all, report being so depressed that it's difficult to even function. And 57, that's like 2/3 of the kids, report feeling overwhelmed. You know, and if that's not enough, you guys, I know that, you know, just in our present day, 2020, this has been quite the year, as you know. And, you know, we have a worldwide epidemic going on. We're shut in, we're cut off. You're going to school online. You're probably just so tired of being online, and here we are again. There's racial tension across the world, across campuses. There are polarizing politics. You can hardly have a conversation with someone without, you know, getting into an argument, without fighting over something. And the economy, you know, we're all worried about it because of lost jobs and worried parents. And so, you know, as if you didn't already have enough pressure as a college student, now you are under even more pressure. So we're all in agreement, okay? We are all in this together. I bet every single one of us is under more pressure than we've been in years, and fighting off being, you know, depressed. And so, so let's get back to this. So I understand. Now, you know, everyone I talk to that if I see them one-on-one as a counselor, they want to know, why am I this way? Why am I struggling with anxiety or depression? And the reason is there's a biopsychosocial reason, meaning there's a biological aspect to it, there's a psychological aspect to it, there's a social. It's really, really complicated. And there's this interplay of these forces that come together in every one of us, and the exact cause is just too difficult to parse out. Okay, and this is what it looks like. Maybe anxiety and depression both tend to be passed down through the generations. So maybe it's in your DNA. Maybe mom was anxious, grandma was anxious. Maybe you come from a long line of there's alcohol abuse in your family or drug abuse, and you can see that just that kind of addiction mentality being passed down, in your family. So there's that. Maybe your genetic, your type of temperament, your personality is more sensitive. Maybe you have a disability, if you have a learning disability, or sometime in school is hard enough, but super hard if you have a learning disability. Socially, your family circumstances. I know a lot of kids in college that's the time their parents were divorced. And that's just very hard, really a burden to bear when you're in school at any time, but that's hard. Maybe you're struggling in school, like we'll have one of those issues that I was just talking about that school counselors are seeing. Maybe you witnessed domestic violence when you were a child, or trauma. Those kind of things can have lasting effects. Maybe, your parents really weren't there for you and didn't teach you a lot of coping skills. So see, so many different issues. It all interplays together, and it's hard to parse out. We just know that it's real. Anxiety and depression are real. So we can understand our own health better when we understand, okay, this is who we are. These are the factors that affect who I am, my existence. And health, being healthy and well, is a matter of looking at the whole picture. So we're not just our physical body. We've got to look at all the other dimensions of our existence and work on all those things. Take care of biologically, really take care of ourselves physically. Have the right kind of social support. Spiritually, I said at the very beginning, the Bible and our spiritual, family can make all the difference sometimes with us. And psychologically, if we need the extra help, then we just do. I think you're going to see in this, in the slides that follow, that sometimes we just need that help. We need to go to a counselor. We're seeing that what we're struggling with, the anxiety or the depression, is excessive. It's overwhelming. It's more than normal. Because like I said, I wanted to make sure I say that again. Some anxiety is normal. Okay, let's read this. Anxiety is unpleasant, but we experience it almost every time we do something important. Surprisingly, anxiety is good for us in moderate amounts. We perform better when we're anxious. Our fight or flight response is activated by anxiety, warning us of danger. We prepare for tests more, and we do better taking the test with a little anxiety. We're on our best behavior on dates with a little anxiousness. We do better on job interviews if we're anxious. Anxiety is related to the fears, the stress, the activity, and worry in our lives. Okay, so anxiety is a part of our daily lives. We are all anxious sometimes. Whoops, let me do that. We're all anxious sometimes, and that can be a good thing, okay, and not a bad thing. But in moderate amounts, anxiety is normal in moderate amounts. So, skipped one. So fear is different from anxiety. Fear is an immediate alarm reaction to danger. Like anxiety, fear can be good for us. It protects us by activating a massive response from the autonomic nervous system with an increased heart rate and raised blood pressure. Our subjective sense of terror motivates us to either fight, flight response to escape, or to attack. And I know you all know what that feels like. If you have been If you've been scared, you know that immediately, your heart is pounding. It goes from 0 to 60, like immediately. And you start sweating, and you start shaking or trembling. We've all been afraid. We've all been scared, or whether a movie or someone scared us or something. And so anxiety and fear can be good. But here you see this poor person. But when it becomes excessive, it could be an anxiety disorder. And so I'm going to talk about just a few of them because we're limited in our time today. And I'm going to talk about the ones that are the most common. Anxiety disorders include disorders that share features of excessive fear and anxiety and related behavioral disturbances, meaning that we're so anxious that it changes our behavior and we're having a hard time functioning in our normal lives. Okay, so fear is the emotional response to imminent threat. Anxiety is anticipation of a future threat. So anxiety is all about wondering, it's all future oriented. It's like, well, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? And usually fearful things, like bad things, like thinking that the worst is going to happen. On the flip side, depression is looking back, ruminating on, oh, why did I say that? Or why did they do that? Or, so it's looking back or looking forward. Okay, many anxiety disorders develop in childhood and they persist if they're not treated. All anxiety disorders can be treated and there can be effective treatment and you can get better. That is the good news. It's 2 to 1 more frequently in females than males. That's a bummer for us, but that's where it's at. I've always liked this little cartoon. My anxieties have anxieties. And, that is how life can feel sometimes, right? That oh man, I thought things were bad, now they're even worse. Everything's falling apart. All I have is bad news. Everything is negative. I'm sure you've felt that way on certain days. Here are the anxiety disorders as they're listed in the DSM. It's called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. It's what psychiatrists and physicians use as a kind of guideline to help people figure out what is wrong. So some of these pertain more to children. Some pertain, separation anxiety disorder. We're going to talk, no, we're not going to talk about that. That's, if you've seen little kids in kindergarten struggling to get out of the car and leave mom, and then they worry about their mom all day. That's what that is. Selective mutism, that's again where kids can come, they talk and talk and talk when they're at home, and then they go to school and they are silent, completely silent. It's really fascinating to watch until they get home again and then they talk again. So specific phobias, specific fears, like that would be about flying in an airplane or getting on an elevator or heights or specific fears, certain animals. These things are very real, very real, can be very disabling. There's social anxiety disorder, a social phobia, and I'm going to talk about that because it's so common. Panic disorder, I'm going to talk about that too because panic attacks are also common. Agoraphobia, that's when you really are afraid to be enclosed in a space, afraid you're not going to be able to escape, things like that. Generalized anxiety disorder, that's, short for or long for GAD. That's just a persistent, across the board, across domains, work, school, social. You tend to worry about a lot of things all the time, every day. Okay, and then there is the substance abuse, medication-induced anxiety disorder. Okay, but let's talk about social anxiety disorder. Let me check this chat. Okay, things are going good. Okay, somebody said, what about autism? Okay, so autism, Okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself because I'll answer that question. I'll remember that and answer that question later. But it's not in the category of anxiety because it's not about fear and anxiety. Okay, autism's not. Okay, let's go back to this. Social anxiety is a marked fear or anxiety about one or more social situations in which the individual is exposed to possible scrutiny by others. So it's all about performance. It's all about not wanting to be judged or scrutinized. Examples are social interactions, having a conversation, especially meeting someone you don't know, feeling judged or criticized by them, meeting unfamiliar people, someone watching you eating or drinking, because again, there's this fear, marked fear, excessive fear of being criticized, performing in front of others, like giving a speech. I'm going to read a descriptor. This is about a case study. Let me read this to you in 1 second. Let me get through this. What causes social anxiety disorder? Again, if you remember that slide, it is a complex interaction of biology, environment, temper, and genetics. It's more than just childhood shyness. We can't just say to people that struggle with social anxiety, just buck up or just toughen up or just get out there and say hi. Hi, how are you? I mean, it's just not that easy at all for people. There is a fear of negative evaluation in social situations. And it can lead to self-isolation and a lifetime of avoidance that takes a toll on career, self-esteem, and relationships. Okay, let me read to you about Zena. She had social anxiety disorder. Fear is one of the most common, though she was an experienced teacher in her mid-30s, Zena had trouble writing on the blackboard in front of her 7th grade class. A couple of times she felt panicky, but usually she only experienced trembling, dizziness, and a sinking feeling of dread. When she thought she heard the kids laughing behind her back, she also felt hot and flustered, and she shook even harder. When no one was watching, she could write just fine, so she came to school early every day and posted as much of the lesson as she could before the bell rang. Last year, she had requested 2 extra blackboards so she could write everything in advance. But it was hard to do so completely because she had a number of different subjects to teach. She needed to post assignments and other material as she went along. Besides the shakes, she told the clinician, it always makes me feel that I have to use the restroom even though I've just gone. I can't be charging out to the restroom several times a day. She was a teacher. Okay, Zena had social anxiety disorder. It is the 3rd most common mental condition after depression and alcohol disorder. So it's very common. The thing about it is that people fear their own emotional reactions in social situations. And it's linked to the fear of being judged, criticized, and humiliated. See these their extreme feelings. And they fear being embarrassed because people are going to notice their shaky voice, their sweating. It only adds to the discomfort and the anxiety. Okay, so people with social anxiety stay inside a lot. They avoid social situations, or they endure them with anxiety. Avoidance, here's the thing, it only reinforces the anxiety. And it leads to a self-perpetuating cycle because people never learn that they can make it through those situations. They just quit trying. And they avoid them, so they never gain confidence that, okay, I can manage this, I can do this. Also, what socially anxious people do is they selectively attend to the negative cues, to the anger, the criticism. They see people's responses, or they see this information as threat related. And they don't see any positive feedback. They don't hear anything positive, just the negative. And of course, that just contributes to the development of anxiety, and it leads to ineffective social behavior. Because if you're thinking these things while you're in a social interaction, you're going to stumble and be awkward. So it's self-perpetuating. These people are always very self-critical, thinking that people see them negatively. They're more sensitive to perceived slights. They're very unforgiving of their own mistakes or slips in dress or performance or conversation. So what's the treatment for social anxiety? Well, psychoeducation, just understanding, the cause, just educating yourself, understanding what is going on here. Okay, this is what's going on in my mind. This is where it starts. My fears that are unrealistic, that are catastrophizing, we call them. They're maladaptive thoughts that are starting in my brain, and then my body reacts to that, and then I, start to have symptoms. The treatment is exposure therapy, and another word for this is facing your fears. Facing it, not avoiding it, okay? You can do role play. You can start out small, like just, create a little step ladder, 1 through 10, 10 being where you're actually going to talk to a total stranger, or you start out just leaving the house, and then you go into a grocery store, or you step by step, you increase your exposure to fearful situations. In vivo exposure, that just means in real life exposure, where in real life you're going out and exposing yourself to these social situations where you have to perform. Maybe you'll just go in and to a restaurant or walk out, and then eventually you build up to actually going into a restaurant and eating. Indirect visualization, just visualizing in your brain, doing that, following through. And, the cognitive restructuring is just recognizing and self-managing your own troublesome thoughts, because it really does start right here. And so many of us are not aware of our thoughts. We just don't think about what we're thinking about. And we don't monitor ourselves and tell ourselves, let's go back to take captive every thought. So those are some of the treatments. Social skills training, our friends can help us, or we can go to counselors for social skills training, for relaxation skills. Every anxiety disorder would benefit from learning relaxation skills, from progressive muscle relaxation, which means starting at your top of your head and working all the way down to every body part, down to your toes, progressively just relaxing every body part. While you do abdominal breathing, while you are breathing into a count of 4, holding to a count of 4, releasing to a count of 4. That immediately lowers your heart rate and decreases your blood pressure immediately. While you're visualizing yourself on the beach, in the mountains, people that struggle with any kind of anxiety disorder really need to make relaxation a part of their daily lives. Some people even need to, for 5 minutes on the hour, every hour, take some time and relax. The treatment, medication does not cure social anxiety. Sometimes people use it in combination with psychotherapy, just to reduce the performance anxiety, so that they can participate in something. But ultimately, it does not. The minute you go off the medication, you feel the same way. So ultimately, we've still got to work on ourselves. So here's looks like a time bomb, right? Stress, overwhelmed. Okay, I'm watching our time. We've got a lot to cover in this, class about because this morning I just spent an hour and a half talking about anxiety only, just anxiety. So I want to get to depression. But panic disorder. Okay, now these are again very common. That's why I chose these two to talk about. So a panic attack is an abrupt, very quick surge of intense fear or intense discomfort that can reach a peak within minutes, within 2 to 10 minutes. It's reached a peak and then it's already going down. And during the time, 4 or more of these symptoms occur, and they last about 30 minutes. Palpitations, a pounding heart, sweating, trembling or shaking, shortness of breath, feelings that you're choking, chest pain, nauseous, feeling dizzy or lightheaded, chills or heat, paresthesia, which is numbness or tingling in your arms or legs, a feeling of unreality, like feeling like you're outside your body, being detached from yourself, fear that I'm going crazy, or fear that you're dying. These are intense, and if you've ever had a panic attack, you know what it feels like. They occur unexpectedly. If you have them on a recurring basis, over a period of 6 months, then you may have a panic disorder. But those are rare. If you have a true panic disorder, it's got to be a persistent thing, and only 3% of the population really have them. Okay, so here is a case study I want to share with you about Philippe. Philippe, a 37-year-old Brazilian man from New York City, went to the ER after experiencing severe chest pain, numbness in his left arm, and being unable to breathe. He told the physician that on September 11th, 9/11, he had been on the Staten Island ferry on his way to work when the airplanes flew into the Twin Towers. He watched the towers collapse, and after that day has been unable to go into the city without beginning to sweat, feeling his heart pounding, and feeling weak. Am I having a heart attack? He asked the physician. Am I going to die? Philippe was given an EKG, but it was normal, which indicated it was not a heart attack. Weeks later, Philippe was driving on the New Jersey Turnpike and started to sweat profusely. He pulled over to the side of the road where he could barely catch his breath and called 911. This time, he went to the ER by the ambulance. The doctors performed a variety of tests, but still couldn't find anything wrong with him, so they sent him home. Whatever was making him feel this way was affecting his ability to function. He could no longer drive his car because of the fear that it would happen again or that he would die. The doctors suggested it might be anxiety, and they gave Philippe a prescription for Valium. Philippe denied that it was all in his head, but now was afraid to drive his car because he thought it might trigger another attack. 3 months later, Philippe walked into his physician's office and told him he couldn't live this way anymore. Since the first trip to the ER, he had experienced a half dozen similar attacks, and it was affecting his work life and his home life. He needed to know what was wrong with him. The doctor referred him to a psychiatrist who diagnosed Philippe as having panic attacks, which are symptoms of panic disorder. So you see how debilitating that it can be. So let's go back. Panic disorder features. So what people do, as you saw with Philippe, they avoid. They start driving a different route to avoid crossing a bridge. They stop going to doctors because sometimes there's this panic associated with, the sight of blood. They avoid exercise because they're afraid of having a heart attack. It's a maladaptive way to deal with panic, and it results in disability, as you can see. So let's see, panic attacks are very common. 50% of adults experience a panic attack in their lifetime. I will never forget being in grad school, taking educational statistics course, final, and absolutely having a panic attack with half those symptoms. You know, I had to get up, go to the bathroom. I could not think straight. I could not concentrate. I was sweating profusely. My heart was pounding. I was shaking, couldn't even hold my pencil. I had to walk down the hall, go to the bathroom. I'd never felt like that in my life. And it took about 5 or 10 minutes, then I came back. So they're very, very common. But again, like I said, fewer than 3% really have a panic disorder, meaning you have them all the time. Again, this occurs more frequently in females than males, 2-to-1 ratio. Rarely occurs in children. Okay. The treatment, first get a complete medical exam, of course, to rule out any kind of heart condition or any other medical, physical reason for panic attacks. Again, psychoeducation is always important. That breathing, abdominal breathing, learning to relax, to breathe. That's the first base. CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. Learning that, okay, it's what's going on in my mind, because what's going on in your mind is that, you know, I can't do this, I can't do this, I don't know the answer, I'm going to fail. We just work ourselves up. Or I'm going to die, you know, or the towers. I mean, you can understand why Philippe was reliving it again and again. Okay, so again, wow. We are just not going to have as much time with depression, but I wanted to show this empty room because, wow. You know, this is what our dorm rooms can look like sometimes. Hopefully none of yours looks like that. Well, we're not living in the dorm right now, are we? But your apartment, your bedroom at home, I hope not. But let's talk about depression, okay? Because, yes, it is very common. And here we go again, women. Women and girls experience depression 2-to-1. You know, the depression is the presence of a feeling of sadness, a feeling of emptiness or irritability, accompanied by somatic, that means, you know, sleep changes, cognitive changes, that's depression, we'll get into that significantly affect the individual's capacity to function. Okay, so let's talk about what's normal. Occasional feelings of being sad or occasional feelings of being irritable or pessimistic are a normal part of life. We all feel that way from time to time. But if feelings occur on a regular basis, these feelings, regularly for 2 weeks or longer, and they start to interfere with your life and you can't function anymore, that could be depression. Okay, so we all are sad from time to time, and especially now in this world we live in. You know, we can be irritable by the changes, you know, pessimistic about the future. Here are some depressive disorders listed out. There's disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. There's a major depressive disorder, persistent depressive disorder, dysthymia. This is when you just have it's just ongoing every day for years. This one affects only women, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Of course, there's a substance or medication-induced depressive disorder, or depressive disorder due to another medical condition. The one we're just going to talk about today is depression, because I just want you to get a picture of what it looks like. I'm really going to watch my time so we can have a little Q&A. Major depression is the most frequently occurring debilitating disorder affecting people worldwide. In the United States alone, it affects a quarter of the population. It's one of the leading causes for disability. ages 15 to 44. It can contribute to job loss, substance abuse, and increased suicide. Of course, the severity of the depression depends on how many symptoms you have, okay? Because if you have got a lot of symptoms and they're very severe, then, you really need to go to the doctor, and sometimes hospitalization is required, okay? So major depressive disorder is where you have those feelings of sadness, emptiness, hopelessness, and your behaviors are affected. And this lasts for 2 weeks. In order to really have depression, there's got to be that sadness, that depressed mood, or a loss of interest in things that you used to be interested in, a lack of pleasure in most things. Nothing is fun anymore. You've lost interest in friends and hobbies and sports and all these things that you used to be. And these feelings persist for most of the day, for most days. See, this is very different from the normal, just periods of sadness or irritability. And it's causing this last one. It's caused the person's mood and lack of energy cause significant functional impairment in interpersonal relationships at work or school. Meaning people that really have major depressive disorder just cannot muster the energy to get up and take a shower or wash their hair, don't want to go to school, have lost interest in their friends, can't make it to work. Here's a acronym that will help you just to recognize the signs of depression in yourself or in other people. These are in addition to that depressed mood or lack of interest. Here are some symptoms, Siggy caps. Sleep, there's a significant change in sleeping habits, either too much or too little. A loss of interest in hobbies or activities. Guilty feelings or feelings of worthlessness or helplessness. Energy, a loss of fatigue. Concentration, reduced ability to concentrate or make decisions. The appetite increase or decrease. Loss of weight or gain of weight. Psychomotor, agitation or talking slowly, moving slowly. And there can be thoughts of death or suicide. Let's see how much we have here. Let's see, I'll save time for the case study if we can get to it. Now, of course, you can see that with depression, it looks very different for every person because it depends on how severe it is. Some people have a mild depression. They've just got 1 or 2 of those symptoms in addition to the sad feeling. Some people have 4 or 5 of those symptoms, and that would be more moderate. Some people have severe depression where they've got practically every one of those symptoms and they really just want to stay in bed all day. All right. Sometimes it can be even with psychotic features. This onset of symptoms, it can be sudden, or it may follow a kind of loss, divorce or relationship breakup or another stressor. Sometimes it can be with anxiety, or sometimes it comes on suddenly, or sometimes it develops over weeks or days. And again, the functional impairment may include an inability to go to work, can't attend school, don't engage in social activities anymore. So the feelings of lethargy may be present and so severe as to prevent the person from getting dressed in the morning or daily living. So major depressive disorder, you can see that it is associated with suicidality, thoughts of suicide, and self-defeating behaviors like substance use, overeating, inattention to health. So these initial symptoms of tearfulness, crying all the time, ruminating over the past things like that, and excessive worry, they're very common. Women are more likely than men, and often there is a family history. Like I said, these things are passed down genetically. There can be a family history of a major depressive disorder or bipolar, or a history of alcohol disorder. So people's personality types who tend to develop major depressive disorder have more negative emotions, or they interpret life events more negatively. So they've got to work really hard to change that, those mindsets, those maladaptive ways of thinking, to be more positive. They've got to really reframe things in their mind to be more positive. Because those faulty cognitions, when combined with stressful life events, they just contribute to depression. A history of trauma also exacerbates the vulnerability to get depression. What's the treatment? Okay, the treatment for depression is really 50-50, because it can be a chemical imbalance in the brain. Medication is often needed to just reestablish a balance in the brain. I won't go into that because it's just for another class. But 50% is medication, 50% is psychotherapy. That is the most effective treatment, both. If you just do one or the other, you won't get as good of results, won't get better as fast. And so in severe cases, I said hospitalization. There are therapies that work. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one. Behavioral activation therapy, that just is really helping people to engage again, re-engage in activity. Acceptance-based therapy, accepting yourself, accepting your feelings, accepting, the depression, learning to deal with that. Mindfulness-based is sort of a meditation, relaxation, stress-reducing therapy, and interpersonal therapy. Again, all these things have research proves them to be effective. Here is a reference. And these are just books that I pulled this information from. You'll have access to all those slides later on. But right now, I want to, I've talked, and so I just want to have a little bit of time for Q&A, okay? I'm going to go back to this, Gregory Chavez. What about autism? Okay, so autism is in a different category from anxiety and depression because it's neurological, okay? So it's not treated the same, it's not categorized the same. It's in a category with ADHD and things like that, where it's a neurological disorder. Can autism play a big role with anxiety? I'm not sure about how to answer that. I think people on the spectrum can have anxiety, but it's different from, again, it's a whole different picture from an anxiety disorder. Okay. Any other questions? How can one manage their emotions in the midst of a depressive episode or an anxiety attack? Okay, well, with anxiety, managing your emotions is number one, becoming aware of what you're thinking about. Okay, really that awareness. What am I thinking? Okay, and learning and realizing that the reason my heart is pounding, the reason I'm sweating is because of what I'm thinking. So change what you're thinking, because it's distorted, it's unrealistic, it's not, it's negative, and it's causing the symptoms in your body. So that's first base is managing your emotions, is becoming aware of your emotions, okay, and changing those. Change the way you think, it'll change the way you feel. With depression, it looks different. With depression, getting out there and being active and re-engaging is going to help you feel better. You may not feel like doing things, but getting out there will help you feel better. When is it a good time to go to a counselor, seek professional help? Well, the guideline is when you're not able to function in your real life. When your anxiety is, or depression is affecting your ability to go to school or go to work or socialize, when it's just excessive, when it's beyond that, then you need to go to a counselor and you need to seek professional help. Okay, someone close to me has a lot of those symptoms for depression but doesn't want professional help. What's the best way to go about that with them? Well, we can't force people, but we can talk but we can talk to people and we can warn them that, these things often, they do not go away on their own. They don't. We need the help. And especially, you can just talk to your friend and be direct and say, have you ever thought about killing yourself? We need to be there for each other and ask each other that question. If you think that a friend has depression and has a lot of those symptoms, ask them, because a depressive disorder is very closely related to suicidality. So good talks, checking on them, telling them that treatment works. It really does work. Let's see. How can I tell if it's anxiety or if I'm just a nervous, shy, anxious person? Well, if you're just kind of nervous and shy and anxious, you can kind of make yourself get out there and meet new people, or you can just kind of calm yourself down. If it's really an anxiety disorder, it's much, much harder. It's beyond just being shy. You can't make yourself, because you can't leave the house. You're too afraid, or it's really excessive. It's a marked fear or anxiety, okay? And can a person have depression but still be able to function in real life? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That might mean that their depression is just mild. They just have a symptom or two. They're still struggling with those thoughts and the sadness and things like that. But they're still able to function. Oh, yes, that's so prevalent. What are some tips to finding a good counselor, therapist? Go on Psychology Today and put in all the links that you need, all the filters for the search. And most counselors are online. Everything's online now because of COVID. Just read some of their web pages and see if they're a good fit for you. And because there's lots of different counselors, you got to see if they specialize in depression and anxiety. But read their websites and just see, would this person be a good fit for me? Would I get along with this person? Let's see. We are really out of time. I'm going to give my email address to you, so that if you did not get your question answered to the extent that you want it answered, just send me an email, okay? And we can, you can either privately send me a question here in this chat, put my name in the search bar under people and send me a one-on-one message, private message, or you can email me. I put my email address here. Okay. All right. Well, we need to finish. So it's really been great to be with you guys. And take care of yourself. I'm glad you have each other. It's a great little chat over here. So you guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your conference, okay? Okay, bye.